Senator Cramer, welcome back to Point of View. Thank you so much for your time. You just walked out of the White House. Very important meeting on immigration. For the people watching right now, the most important thing they should know about this meeting is what?
Well, I think the most important thing is that the president and his team, led by Jared Kushner, are reaching out to some of the more conservative Republican senators to find some common ground that is, certainly not low-hanging fruit, but doable. And the reason for that, Chris, is when you think about it, the president has offered up some more comprehensive legislation in the past where the people that opposed it the most were the most conservative among us. And so this time he's sort of giving things a test run, getting feedback, doing a listening session on two basic areas. One is, of course, securing our borders, and secondly, attracting and retaining the very best immigrants we can get that meet the demands of our growing economy. And it was sort of fun. He was sort of talking about sort of blame for why we are having a problem. I said, well, just remember, part of the blame is because you've created a rocket ship economy that has grown the demand for high-skilled workers in our country, and that's a good thing.
So take us inside the room, Senator. Very few of us obviously get to be inside one of these meetings. So take us inside the room, break down how the conversation went, and what did you take away that looks like a doable deal?
Yeah, so it's the cabinet room. It's a historic place. I never take it lightly. In fact, at one point, I sat across from the president a little bit, then just a little bit to his left. But as I looked at him and the rose garden behind him, I thought, how did I land here? How does the son of a rural electric lineman from Kindred, North Dakota, land here one more time discussing this major issue? And yet it's such a great honor to represent North Dakota. So that's the setting, that the president at the head, 6 senators on each side of the table, and then a number of staff around it. The president opened it up by thanking us for being there, talking a little bit about trade in China and what's going on there to give us an update on that. And then, of course, went in to talk about trade or talk about immigration, and the reason that we were there was to present some principles somewhat in bill form already that he'd like to take a shot at. And then he turned the program over to Jared Kushner, who has been leading this for some time, as I think you and I talked about a few weeks ago. He and I had a discussion about this project, and it was a very disciplined presentation. It focused on, as I said, I wouldn't call it low-hanging fruit, but doable things, and focused on 2 aspects. One is, border security, but not so much on building a wall. That wasn't really the focus of border security. The focus of border security was more how to deal with harden our ports of entry, how to move commerce and legal immigration faster through those, but also to attract the right kind of, immigrant. Of course, that means dealing with things like asylum rules, processing quickly, sending people home right away if they shouldn't be there, and then talking about the legal immigration system so that we have a true merit-based system that attracts the right people, so that we have the right workforce at Microsoft and Fargo, or that we have the doctors that we need at Sanford, and so. I just really appreciated the opportunity to both, hear, but then to provide my insights.
Senator, we have just a couple minutes left. I do want to get the update that he gave you on China in a moment. But let's go through a couple of things rapid fire. So you're talking about merit-based. What are you going to do to change the asylum rules?
Well, I think you have to raise the standard, and then more importantly, have the infrastructure at the border to process immediately. You just can't have people, coming back or expecting they're going to come back for their hearing 4 years later. So being able to capture them at the border and then process them quickly. And the reason that's important is for lots of reasons, but finally, I think there's universal, at least acceptance and if not proclamation, that there is a crisis at the border. There's a legitimate humanitarian crisis at the border, and we're attracting them, and even Democrats, even the New York Times doesn't dispute that anymore.
I saw that op-ed that came out. I think it was on Sunday.
Hard to believe.
Did it come up, sir, where they said, hey, right now, according to the law, we're only able to send asylees back to Mexico and Canada, but not to the Northern Triangle.
Right.
Is that piece of this puzzle
Yes.
they're going to change?
I think that is part of the language that would ultimately be in there. We have to be able to treat, non-contiguous countries the same as we do the contiguous countries. So that would definitely be part of it. We didn't get into that much detail,
okay.
But that's clearly part of the draw.
I'm assuming that DACA came up. Are we looking at citizenship, legal status with DACA, or did DACA not come up at all?
Chris, it came up, but it is not part of this discussion. So the issue came up, as you know, DACA is in the courts. The Trump administration got an unfavorable ruling by a judge in the Ninth Circuit. It got an unfavorable ruling on appeal in the Ninth Circuit. It will be taken up by the Supreme Court sometime probably this year. And so it's really one of those issues that we can't get leverage on because, there's no incentive for the pro-DACA politician to deal with us. So that's not on the table.
Excuse me, Senator, sorry about that. Everyone at home is chomping at the bit to hear the latest from the president about this China deal. You said he gave you an update in this meeting. Yeah. What's the update, sir?
Right. Well, the update is that they weren't dealing in good faith, as we now know, that they were starting to renegotiate things that had already been settled. He felt the only thing he could do is hit them back with the most blunt instrument he has, and that's, of course, tariffs. I think pretty much all of the Republicans in the Senate support that, including Chuck Grassley, who, by the way, was at the meeting. We also had the Vice President Pence at lunch with us today to talk about the same thing. So we also, I think, pretty much all support what he's doing right now, but we also delivered the message loud and clear that this can't go on a lot longer, that this growing season for our farmers in many cases is make or break. And so we need a deal done, but we do need a deal that's advantageous to the United States and to the American farmer. So we'll see. The encouraging thing is that the Vice Premier is coming to Washington, D.C., will be here in the next 24 to 48 hours. And the fact that they're still coming, in fact, I think they weren't going to come. They were,
wow,
intent on canceling the meeting this week until he put up this ultimatum and said, okay, fine, as of Friday, count on 25% on everything. And they changed their mind and decided they'd be coming. So I think it's, it's tentative right now, but somewhat encouraging.
Senator, 10 seconds. Does a deal get done? It might not be public, but a deal get done Friday via this trip of the Vice Premier?
Well, being an eternal optimist, but also pragmatic, I think that they're at least going to get some principles done. The reason I say that is it's just as important, if not more important, for China as it is for us. They have all the incentive in the world to do something. So I'm hopeful, Chris.
Senator Kevin Cramer, thanks for the time. So I know you're extremely busy, so we appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you again soon.